So if you and I were going to get together and I'm going to present to you my script and you're going to work out my scripts with the nutshell techniques, what are some of the first steps and how do I do that?
Well, there are a couple different ways. I would recommend getting my book. You can get my book on Amazon. You can also, most public libraries have it.
Oh, great.
So get my book. I recommend getting the paperback version just because the paperback is a larger format. It's got these nice big diagrams in the back.
Yeah.
The Kindle limits you to those little teeny these beautiful diagrams are like an inch in the Kindle, and it's difficult to flip back and forth. So to start approaching to understand the method, and then use it to develop your story on your own. If you wanted to explore things further, you could contact me, and best ways through my website, jillchamberlain.com. And also on the website, you can go ahead and download free versions of my nutshell technique worksheets so that you have them in a nice PDF format to develop your story. And then if you wanted to contact me, I can work with writers both one-on-one. Sometimes writers come to me when, at the very beginning, they haven't written a word yet, but they're trying to develop the story. They want to make sure they have a story, not a situation. We can set up a consultation either in person in Los Angeles, or we can do it via Skype, where I work with the writer to make sure that their nutshell is solid. Other writers approach me after they finish a screenplay to do a script consultation. And then I also do my masterclass on the nutshell technique. I have a 1-day and I also have a 2-day workshop. Those are in Los Angeles during the summers. Those are ways that you can work with me to understand the nutshell technique more.
And with these master classes, do you have students bring in their own scripts? And as a part of the class, you dissect with the nutshell technique?
Yeah, so the master class, it's a 1-day and it's a 2-day. And so we're not gonna have time to read your screenplay in this. But what I will do in the master classes, I will walk through some movies and diagram up on the whiteboard, looking at the nutshell technique, pointing out how it could have ended up a situation instead of a story, looking at a couple of famous film examples. And then folks will, those who volunteer can start explaining their story nutshells. So they can bring in on the nutshell technique form, we'll talk through it verbally, and I'll work with the writer one-on-one. It'll be in front of the class, but as if they're not in the room. I'll work with the writer one-on-one. I'd like it to do it this way because I created this, I know this a lot better than anyone else. And so I know the pitfalls that happen. So people may read the book and they may really like the idea of the method, but once they put into practice, you know, it's one thing for me to show you how beautifully it works in Groundhog Day or another movie. It's another thing to get it to work for your own story. And so they start running into some pitfalls that I'm familiar with. So we'll go through different volunteers' examples and brave volunteers, and we'll talk one-on-one. I'll talk one-on-one with the writer as they talk through their nutshell. It's very similar to how I work with writers when they work with me one-on-one via Skype in private consultation. And then I will kind of poke holes in their nutshell, and the reason being is to strengthen it, to hit the pitfalls that I know often happen, and help you find more strong ways to figure out things. Help you use it to find, for example, that unexpected yet interesting ending that everyone is struggling to find. There are ways we can use the nutshell technique to help you find that.
And the reason they have some pitfalls, is that because they're so close to the work? Whereas if you did Groundhog's Day and you asked them, then they'd have no problem?
That's a big part of it, right? It's easy for me to show and for everyone to understand, oh, I see exactly how it works in Groundhog Day. It's quite another thing when you apply it to your own stories. And it is also, it's interesting because I will be able to work with you, but if you're in the class, you'll be listening to other people presenting these stories. And I think it's really interesting for people to try to fix the nutshells in their heads. So it's a really good example for you as a writer, particularly if you're a more experienced writer. Maybe you already think you're pretty good at figuring out story for yourself. but then you have to hear somebody else's story, and you're hearing the problems to see if you can figure out what the solutions will be. So that's part of it. It's also just from experience that I've just literally done thousands of these, and so I very often can hear right away where people have thought they understood a concept of it, where in fact that they have misunderstood it a little bit, and I can just point out real clear correctives right off the bat to help people understand it at a much deeper level.
It's a very clever name, the nutshell technique. What does it mean?
Well, actually, it wasn't even all that clever. When I first created it, I identified these 8 elements. I put them on a piece of paper, and I went to label my form, and I thought, well, it's basically a screenplay in a nutshell. And so that's what I wrote on the form, and ended up calling it the nutshell technique, and the name has stuck ever since. So.